tools you will need are a T20 Torx bit tool, 10mm socket with a 1/4 inch ratchet, 12mm open end wrench, 3/16 and 1/8 inch Allen wrenches, and a flathead screwdriver. Begin by loosening the hose clamp on the throttle body end of the air intake assembly. Then unplug the mass air sensor connector. Remove the 10mm nuts securing the airbox to the frame. Unplug the attached vacuum lines, and you can then remove the entire air intake assembly from the car. Remove the Torx head bolts securing the mass air electronics with a T20 Torx bit tool. And then remove the lower intake tube. Lay out the components of the LSR cold air and begin the assembly process. Begin by installing the lower air box to the main shield. Use 8 of the provided number 10 1/4 inch button head screws and nuts. Use a 1/8 inch Allen wrench for these screws. Next, install the mass airflow housing with integral velocity stack in the base shield. Use the 1/4 inch by 3/8 inch button head screws and secure them using a 3/16 inch Allen wrench. Install the brass elbow into the threaded bung in the bottom of the mass air housing. Tighten until it is pointing in the right direction as shown with a 12mm open end wrench. Next, install the factory mass air electronics into the LSR mass air housing as shown. Transfer the bushings and inserts from the mounting tabs of the factory airbox to the long and short L brackets provided as shown. Install the longer of the two L brackets onto the back of the main shield with two number 10 1/4 inch button head screws using a 1/8 inch Allen wrench. Install the smaller of the two L brackets onto the outside of the rear shield with the number 10 1/4 inch button head screws. Install the air filter over the mass air velocity stack. Install the rear shield onto the base shield assembly. Be sure to have all 3 flanges mounted to the inside of the main shield to ensure flush fitment on all flanges. Use 6 number 10 by 1/4 inch button head screws to attach it to the main shield with a 1/8 Allen wrench. Install the barbed pin onto the remaining bracket. Install that bracket onto the bottom of the lower airbox with 2 number 10 1/4 inch button head screws with a 1/8 Allen wrench. Transfer the lower intake tube to the new lower airbox in the same orientation as it was in the factory airbox. To hold it tight in place after you install it, slide the supplied bent wire in between the airbox and the plastic tabs on the outside of the air intake tube. Install the small rubber trim along the open section of the airbox. Install the larger bulb trim seal around the top flange of the entire airbox. Be sure it fits snug onto the top flange to ensure hot air does not leak past the seal and into the airbox assembly. Set the assembled airbox into the same location as the factory airbox. Be sure to push the barb pin through the rubber grommet in the top of the frame rail. Also be sure to locate the rubber grommets in the shield brackets over the 2 studs on the inner fender which secure the factory airbox. Tighten the 2 10mm flange nuts back onto the threaded studs to secure the airbox with a 10mm socket. Remove the engine cover to gain access to the factory PCV pipe on the fitting between the oil cap and the intake manifold on top of the engine. To remove the factory PCV pipe, release the PCV hose connector tab by pushing clockwise on the small tab to allow the connector to release from the steel pipe. Install the long piece of 3/8 rubber PCV tubing over the barbs of the brass elbow in the bottom of the mass airflow pipe and secure with one small hose clamp. Feed the new PCV hose over the same steel pipe you removed the factory PCV pipe from on the engine. Route the PCV hose on top of the coolant hose near the front of the engine as shown, and zip tie it to the hose to prevent it from moving and getting caught in the front accessory drive. Plug in the mass air electronics and install the silicone air intake tube. The larger of the two hose clamps goes on the larger end of the tube. Reinstall the engine cover. Install your custom tune if you're using a tune-required version of the LSR intake, and you're finished. Enjoy your intake and thank you for choosing LSR Performance.